You are listening to KPTZ FM 91.9 in Port Townsend. I'm Charlie Bermant. The show is called Attention Please. The topic today is Fort Worden. There's been a lot of discussion about it in the past 3 months. And if you're looking for a place where it's going to be explained to you, you're going to have to take your business elsewhere. We are talking about what's happening today with the park. Our guests are Chris Holm, who is, tell me your title, Chris.
Yeah, Chris Holm. I'm the Operations Division Manager for Washington State Parks.
Okay, and we have Centrum Executive Director Rob Birman. Say hello.
Good morning, Port Townsend.
Okay, and finally, we have Taylor Clark, the KPTZ General Manager, who's going to just fill us in.
I don't know what I'm going to do, but I'm glad to be sitting here, Charlie.
Okay,
thanks.
Well, if I need you to talk, I'll just point at you. Okay. So, yeah, we wanted to just cover a few important topics about the park, let people know what's going on. So the first question is, what's the latest? Let's go to Chris.
Sure. Thanks for having me. I appreciate you inviting me here today. A lot has been happening in the last couple of weeks alone. Since October, since we started working on this project, at least trying to work through the whole PTA and the receivership. So the most recent turn of events, I'm sure everybody's aware of, is that Fort Worden Hospitality has decided to close up. And so, for us in parks, it's been a scramble, trying to work through all of the processes that we did not have in place, all the things that we could do to try to support whatever customers we could with hospitality. We're still working through that. And so it's been and at the same time, still working through all of the challenges, I guess I would say, and the things we don't know on a daily basis of trying to manage the campus, taking back over the campus, everything from maintenance to just the daily activities that happen on the campus. And so we're moving forward. We're making good progress, and we're learning every day.
And so what's the biggest obstacle at this point?
Time and capacity, really. I think it's just a matter of, we're trying to accommodate things. We're trying to learn. I just walking around the other day and just, poking into buildings and realizing all of the things that, both hospitality and the PDA were connected to, and just, trying to grasp all of that and then make some sense of it and then try to move forward with, all right, so now what are we going to do with this and how do we want to move forward? And so, we're, as an agency, we're trying to do this methodically. We're also trying to do this very carefully. We're not trying to really rush, or we aren't trying to rush things. We want to get this right, and that may be slower than some folks are hoping, but we want to do it the smart way. But at the same time, speaking specifically to hospitality and the customers, I mean, we're wanting to be sympathetic. I mean, it's not a good deal. I think the fact that a lot of these folks are going to be impacted by this, and so as much as we can to soften that, that's what we're trying to work on.
Okay, so since this has happened, and every time there's news, Facebook takes over and has a whole wave of BS. One of the things that when hospitality closed was saying, oh, God, the park is closed, and what's going to happen with camping? Clear that up for us, if you
I will
can.
clear that up. Nothing is different with the park. The way the park is operated in the past, it's been the campus, which is the PDA and hospitality and all that, and then there's the areas outside of that, which is the campgrounds and the beach and those areas. Nothing has changed with the campgrounds and the beaches. So you can still come into the park, you can still walk your dog, you still go on campus, you still do those things. That's not changed.
But you can't get a cup of coffee while you're here.
Not yet. No.
Okay, so Rob, Centrum, what's the latest with that? You were saying earlier that you're on the way to a good summer here.
Yes, thank you, Charlie. Centrum had a lot of deliberation and gives state parks a huge amount of credit because they are pivoting and weaving as they can. And they've said for many months, as all of these unknowns were in front of us, that sustaining Centrum's operations here was somewhat of a priority. We've been here since the beginning of Fort Worden State Park, and we drive a lot of economic activity here at Fort Worden. Mm-hmm. So Centrum on Friday of last week opened up registration for all of our programs for this year. We're going to operate with a limited footprint on housing so that we can accommodate certain scales of programs in 2025. It's an important part of our tax base for Port Townsend and Jefferson County, and it's an important part of the tourist economic backbone of the community. So we're going to stand up our own housekeeping and food delivery solutions just for our programs, which is about 14 or 15 weeks. That's going to come at a cost of about $250,000 to Centrum, something we've never done before, but thankfully, we have a lot of connections in our community and a lot of community advisors giving us advice on the most economical way to serve food to 100 people in a week. So we're standing up our own solutions for that, and we're going to be here this summer.
So that's $250,000 that you didn't have, or you have, or perhaps you didn't. You're expecting to spend.
In a way, Charlie, that cost was built into the Fort Worden hospitality pricing. So it's not as though it didn't exist. It's just that Centrum didn't have to employ those people. So now they're going to be our employees, not hospitalities. And the benefit of it, honestly, is that we're only dealing with 14 or 15 weeks. It's not 52 weeks. So the overhead is less. They're basically going to be independent contractors, and it's a limited contract. It's about 6 months of time.
And so are we going to see the attendees going to see anything different?
Well, as you said, there probably won't be a cafe 24 hours a day, which we all benefited from. I think from a public standpoint, especially the people that come from outside the state of Washington, I don't think it's going to feel all that different. I suspect some of the buildings will be closed full time. But the average person doesn't go into all of the buildings. So the meeting rooms probably will be open. Limited housing, like the dormitories, will be in use by Centrum. The theaters will be open. The park gate will be open. The weather will be good. We might have food trucks here. We don't know that yet. So for events, as we've done in the past, we may have some food trucks here. We don't know yet about beer and wine service for concerts. But, our priority is the learning. That's the number one priority, not the amenities. It's kind of camp. So camp might be a little bit more primitive this year, but I think the artists that come here are ready to embrace that.
And I think the attendees come in and they're like, a little relaxed about stuff. I mean, they're not going to start screaming about clean towels and things like that.
They're going to get clean towels.
Well, I mean, clean monogrammed towels folded properly.
Probably not that.
Yeah, I think the housekeeping services will be comparable to what they've experienced in the past.
Cool. Okay, so Taylor, how has this changed KPTZ, and are we still on the air?
Well, yes, KPTZ is still on the air. We're planning on staying here. Our view is that Parks has had to come in and has had a lot of sort of high priority things that they need to take care of, and we realize that we're sort of a little lower on the priority list there, and so we're waiting until Chris has the bandwidth to come around and start working with us again. We were working with Parks actively and collaboratively before the receiver stepped in, and when the receiver stepped in, that kind of put the brakes on that. And so I'm assuming that and hoping that we're going to just pick up where we left off on that, which I think will mean for us that we'll have a short-term lease until we can work out some longer-term plan.
Okay, you are listening to KPTZ. The show is Attention Please. I'm Charlie Bermant, hosting,
Yeah.
And Chris Holm from Parks, Rob Birman from Centrum, Taylor Clark from KPTZ. Chris, are you like connecting with all the partners in some way to figure out what they want? And
Yeah. Yes, I am. And so, yes, to what you were saying, Taylor, it's, you know, I'm envisioning that I am hoping that, you know, in short order at some point here when we are able to work through all the legal kind of ambiguities and we make the decision and Parks is clearly back in that seat where we were prior to October 4th or 7th or whatever, we will resume that. And like you said, we had plans and we were working with every one of the tenants on short-term leases month to month until we can work through a fair market value appraisal for all the spaces that are leased, and then enter into some a little bit longer term agreements with each of the tenants. So in the meantime, I mean, throughout this whole thing, even with the receivership, yes, communicating off and on with the different tenants and different needs, different projects that they had in the hopper that they'd been talking about, things like that. Yeah, staying actively as much as I can anyway. Involved.
And certainly, I'd say when you talk about different partners and their projects, that Centrum's need was immediate and acute to stand up their 2025 season, and that's important to I think all the partners here, but particularly to KPTZ. That one of the reasons we're here is for that ability to collaborate. No season, no musicians, no blues festival, no concerts on the lawn. We want that stuff to happen. So.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Can I also just add to that, Taylor, that under the PDA, Centrum started bringing pretty substantial resources to bear on upgrading some of the facilities that are here at Fort Worden. KPTZ did the same thing. That work is really important to me because I think when we blend private philanthropy with public funding, we bring the park further faster.
That's the model we want to use.
Yeah, we want to see that these facilities continue to serve the public for another 50 to 100 years.
Okay, so back to the partners. We have a number of them. I can't name all of them, but probably there are 5 or 6 or 7 or
Northwind
Arts,
the woodworking school, the
Copper Canyon Press, Rain
Press,
Shadow Recording, the United Earth Networks,
Peninsula College,
Peninsula College, the
Marine Science Center.
Marine Science Center. That's right.
So are there
Rain Shadow?
Are there different? Do these guys have different priorities that you have to deal with, or are they all kind of united in what they want?
Well, yeah. I mean, united in the sense that they're all tenants, and that is a goal that we all kind of have a common focus and interest. But no, I mean, every entity is going to be different. They're all going to have their own individual priorities of what they do. And so I would imagine that woodworking's programs they have priorities versus what Centrum's programs are, right? So, but overall, I would hope that, or I think the reason that we're all on the campus or they're all on the campus is kind of a united mission, I guess, or a united overall focus of keeping this campus live and active and maintained.
The solvency issues of the PDA and the PDA going through this difficult time doesn't alter the fact that we still have this vision of a mission here of the campus of continuous learning. I think there's probably a better way to put that, but that's the catchphrase that's thrown around, and we're still committed to that. And I think Centrum is and Parks is. Yeah,
and as we move forward, back in October, part of the plan was that we would start engaging in a basically a new planning process for the campus, just to revisit those kind of things. Revisit, is this the mission? Is it, and we are all committed to this still, and so we intend to hopefully pick that back up here once we've taken back over officially the campus.
Just before we went on the air, you were talking about how we might take this. You're talking about taking it slow and looking at it carefully. And I thought that was something that I hadn't heard before, and I found that very interesting.
Yeah, there's certainly pieces that need to move a little quicker than others, and that we're trying to get right quickly. But there's also this desire that we want to step back and not overcommit or make the wrong decision that we can't pull back from easily. And so I think with everything, that's kind of the goal is we want to make sure we're doing this the right
This is sort of
way.
a chance to take a breath right now.
Exactly. I mean, it's a reset. I mean, it is a big reset.
But Charlie, can I just say, imagine all of the propane tanks were under the name of Fort Worden Hospitality around this campus.
Right.
So Chris and I and others are pivoting to say who should take over the utilities. The water bill, the electric bill, the gas bill hasn't been paid, I believe, since October.
The garbage bill.
There's a lot of people, in addition to the brides and the wedding parties, that were impacted, including the city, the county, the PUD. There's a lot of people impacted by these changes, and we're all pivoting as fast as we can to keep the buildings durable, at least.
Well, I know from the standpoint of being a tenant, I have not seen a bill for utilities since October, I'd say.
So what's going on with that? I mean,
That's a good question, but I believe that Chris has been talking to the PUD and presumably the city about water and power, right?
Yeah, it's been really the receiver, their responsibility.
It's their
is
responsibility.
Their responsibility managing the campus. But I will say that we have started moving accounts back over to parks. That doesn't mean we're going to be assuming all of the responsibility for all those bills that have accrued since then.
No,
But-
and certainly the partners got together in October and made a joint decision that it would be prudent to put those funds in escrow because we presume we're going to be paying those bills.
Yeah.
Can I just say also, Charlie, all of that is under the guidance of the state court still.
Correct.
So paying the utilities has to be approved by the court because of the receivership. So the listeners shouldn't be alarmed that the utilities haven't been paid. The court has to approve that, and
Correct.
I know the attorneys are working all of those details out.
But the PUD and the city, I mean, are we just kind of mounting a debt, and then at some point we'll just give them $10 billion or something? Or
Well, it's not quite that much.
Hopefully, it's not that much. Yeah, but
Yes.
yeah, I mean that's essentially it. I mean they're being very, very gracious and working with us through this whole thing, not turning off the power, not shutting off the water, those kind of things, and we're thankful for that.
Yeah.
Bottom line is the either the receiver or parks will end up paying the portions. I mean, we'll pay what we're responsible for effective whatever date that's decided. But bottom line is that's a reimbursable cost. It'll turn right back around, and we will, or the receiver will, invoice tenants to say, hey, this is what you've used. Let's pay it.
Okay, so, since I'm a reporter and I ask the tough questions, this is KPTZ. I'm Charlie Bermant. The show is Attention Please. We are here with Chris Holm, Rob Birman, and Taylor Clark from State Parks, Centrum, and KPTZ, respectively. Okay, guys, so we've had a whole mess the last few months. Whose fault was it?
I
was going to ask this question. Right?
of course, and it's easy and entertaining to point fingers. It's even easier and more entertaining to point fingers within social media. I have my favorites, but I don't think it's particularly productive at this point to do that.
Can I say, Charlie, I think the simple story is that people's eyes were bigger than their stomach. So there was no malfeasance here necessarily. Everybody had ambition, and I think the ambition was a little bit over what was deliverable. There was a lot of borrowing of money, which is clear now, which might have been regrettable as opposed to raising the money, which would have taken more time. That's just the way the world works. And but I don't think the intentions were bad. But when the tide went out, people were exposed, and that's what happened when COVID hit.
I will say that as the, my normal job within Parks is the operations division manager for the agency, and my special assignment here is campus business director. And so my focus has been moving this forward. Okay, from this point, I am kind of concerned about what happened, but at the same time, I'm not focused on that. I'm focused on, all right, well, how do we move this forward? And so I really hope folks can do that as well. And so far, I mean, it's been a lot of positive response as far as excitement, I guess, about where we can go with this. It's been a challenge, but
So are you going to have to hire extra staff to people who work here to manage
and
this?
I mean, we've already hired administrative person, a facilities coordinator. We have already hired one construction maintenance person. We're hiring another construction maintenance person, maintenance mechanics, and park aides. So those will be coming online here in March and April. And then, based on how successful we are with the legislature this year and getting appropriations, there's specific appropriations for Fort Worden to have additional staff as well to maintain the campus. And so this is, as of, a year ago, this was not on, our plan, right? But this is one of those things where we're adapting and having to staff up to do this, where before we didn't.
And you all have the funds to manage this then?
Well, that's
Or you just said legislature?
yeah, and that's a big question, and so we will have to scale accordingly. But at the moment, we are because of the way the budget is working. I mean, this is not things that we had budgeted this biennium, and so we're adjusting and we're asking for supplemental appropriations. But as an agency, we are having to pull resources from other areas, which has been a prime example, or would be our regional maintenance team, our statewide maintenance crews. We're pulling them from across the state to come help. We had a crew from Wenatchee here doing maintenance on the campus. So
they were doing that was
Yeah.
with the wires, with making sure that you were doing the tree trimming, right?
We did, yeah. We had the statewide arbor crew here
Yeah.
doing tree trimming. We have a maintenance crew doing work on several of the buildings on campus, and just a lot of the infrastructure stuff. So it's definitely an agency-wide effort, I would say.
Go ahead.
Charlie, I also think that this isn't the worst time in the world for a little bit of austerity. So we're facing a lot of disruption on the national level. It's not an awful time to sort of scale back and be realistic about what can be achieved and delivered this year. So we're happy to embrace that, even though it's a compromise.
But what do you cut?
Well, I think services, there won't be a coffee shop. I don't know if the lawns are going to be cut 3 days a week. It may be a reduction overall across the campus, which I think is a pragmatic move right now, while we figure out how is the Washington, D.C. influence going to settle out, and what will the mood be of tourists and visitors and all the people that travel here to come to this campus.
So yeah, you talk about the whole grant thing. I guess you're talking about NEA, which is...
Yeah, there's a current move afoot as of last week to zero out the budgets for the NPR and the PBS funding. I was just saying to Taylor, many administrations have gone down this path. It has never succeeded. I worked at the NEA in the 1990s. The NEA was founded in 1965. There are arts organizations, park districts in every congressional district. So it's a hot topic, and it amounts to almost no money. So it never succeeds. But
yeah, but it scares the crap out of us in the meantime.
That's the intention, I think. Yeah.
So we've lost a certain amount of income and tourism from hospitality going away. We're not going to have any weddings or memorial services here or anything. But maybe the park. Talk about how important the park is for Port Townsend. I mean, you're gonna if Centrum were to not do its programs, then that would have a domino effect in terms of the whole economy of Port Townsend. If the parks was not offering a good camping experience, then that would just kind of trickle over to the general community. And yeah, I'm just stating that. I hope you.
Well, I'll just say that the PDA hired a consultant to do the pros plan, and the pros plan contained, and I don't know the number off the top of my head, but it was eye-popping in terms of the contribution of the programs that take place on the Fort Worden campus have to the local economy. And I don't think the not having a PDA to administer that we're now thrown on our own resources, parks, Centrum, KPTZ. What do we do? But the economic impact is still there. That we'd like to have that positive impact on the community.
Also, Charlie, just for the sake of the listeners, Centrum did look at relocating for this year because we weren't sure if there was going to be access to the facilities. We did not want to pursue that, but we had a backup option outside of Jefferson County if we needed to do it. Nobody wanted to do that. And I think it's important to keep our nose under the tent and keep the top of mind of all the people that travel here. Centrum has visitors from 17 countries in all 50 states. We don't want them to take Fort Worden mentally off their checklist. Mm-hmm. All the people that camp at the beaches and the campgrounds, this is a wonderful place in the summertime. There might be a coffee truck here this summer, so if you're walking your dog or you're a camper, you might be able to get a cup of coffee and a muffin. That remains to be seen, but it's important to keep that foothold for the summer of 2025 so that we don't have to rebuild from scratch in the future.
Now, we have venues here. This is a question for Chris. Mm-hmm. Yeah. That these are venues that we used to go to hospitality to get, but presumably is Parks doing those themselves?
Yeah, and so so the venues that are there we would consider more the day use facilities, right? Not the lodging facilities.
No, but the Wheeler Theater.
And so we're actively talking with Centrum about them possibly taking over a couple of the facilities.
Oh, really?
Full time, yeah. And so facilities like that, and there's the facilities like the guardhouse. There's a concession place. We're looking at that right now and talking about what, again, back to what we commit to short term versus long term. Mm-hmm. What can we commit to now that maybe won't if we decide that we want to bring in a new hospitality concessionaire or entity? What will not detract from what they want to do as well? And so those are a lot of the things we have to look at and just make some good decisions, make some solid decisions on.
So a couple of years ago, and this preceded the Thing Festival, we brought Modest Mouse to the
McCurdy.
The hangar, McCurdy, yeah. So I always thought we could bring more concerts out here and maybe get a big, not Taylor Swift or anybody, but some kind of semi-famous, Richard Thompson or somebody to do a concert here. Is that feasible?
Sure. First of all, you're aging yourself, Charlie. Welcome to the 80s. But
well, I did say Modest Mouse, right?
Well, yeah, Richard Thompson too. But if Centrum entertains the idea of managing the McCurdy and the Wheeler, which we're willing to do because we want to invest in those theaters to modernize them, you could expect that we'll have a presenting series and we'll work with KPTZ and the Production Alliance and some of the other partners on the campus to activate those buildings more regularly.
Okay, you've been listening to Attention Please. I'm Charlie Bermant. We've been Chris Holm with Parks, Rob Birman with Centrum, and our own well-respected general manager, Taylor Clark. Our time is up. Thank you for listening, and stay cool, all of you, won't you?